In 2020, a group of French developers are launching a sequel to Windjammers, a Japanese arcade game first released in 1994. It's an improbable story, even before you get to the details of how this obscure title nearly faded from history entirely, with little chance of a re-release, let alone a follow-up, before a small, fanatical community of players nurtured it back to health and helped raise it to new heights of popularity. But, for the uninitiated, what even is Windjammers?
Windjammers is a mix between Pong and Street Fighter.
Et la quintessence, moi j'appelle ça le Street Fighter 2X de Pong.
The game is crazy, it's like muscular dudes throwing frisbee with fire and it's crazy fun.
C'est la folie.
It's a crossover between a Street Fighter game with Kamehameha, Hadouken, something like that. But the game, it's a Pong game, but with dynamic fire.
Windjammers, or Flying Power Disc in Japan, was released for Neo Geo MVS in February of 1994. Described as a battle sports game, it took an easy-to-learn, hard-to-master approach, adopting the fundamentals of Pong, adding the technicality of Street Fighter 2, and slapping on the looks of some kind of California spandex Muscle Beach fever nightmare. Because of the sheer cost of the Neo Geo AES home console and its cartridges, you'd find it most commonly in arcades, its clean neon looks contrasting with the explosions and gunmetal on neighbouring attractions. Screens. It went down just fine. No one really went crazy for it, but, and I may be editorializing a bit here, no one could truly dislike a game this vibrant, silly, and easy to pick up. The exception to that relative disinterest came in France, where a community of players began to take notice of this arcade oddity.
25 years ago, in the arcade game, the Neo Geo MVS, you know, the big one? Yes. And I remember they have a Metal Slug 1, they have the Metal Slug 2, and I saw the Windjammer game with, again, the cool power visual effect. That was amazing. You are a child. And 10 years after, I worked for 6 months to save a lot of money to buy a Neo Geo IS with Windjammer. It was a crazy thing to do. But now I'm cool, I have the game and I'm big fan about this game.
Je pense que j'avais entre 12-13 ans avec un ami d'enfance et il avait une Neo Geo CD.
Every tournament there was Windjammers. It's like, yeah, it's the game in the corner, you look at it, looks nice, but yeah, I have my tournaments to do, so maybe another time. And you see people get excited and you say, okay, I need to play that game.
Windjammers was never a thing in England. It wasn't.
What?
Yeah, like.
No, I can't believe that.
Uncaring of the rest of the world, that little French fan base kept growing and getting more and more fervent. Kevin Keikun Kref, who'd go on to become a Windjammers pro, tells me he bought a Neo Geo cabinet and hired vans to drive it to fighting game tournaments across the country. He didn't do it for any reward other than just introducing people to the game. Eventually, fans like Kevin organised. Windjammers France was born, a community with the sole, virtuous purpose of helping people learn and play the game long after Neo Geos had disappeared from shop shelves.
There was this association called Windjammers France that they started to gather people around because the game is really cool to play, and so it was kind of, I would not say easy, but like not that hard to gather people around. And then, I don't know, like the founders of this association, they just decided to go all the way into the game. And because of that, people saw what was the level of complexity and depth that Windjammers could bring. Basically, because of like a small team of French players started to really like nail the game and understand all its core mechanics and show people what were the possibilities behind it, that other people gathered around and kind of developed a whole culture around this game.
Sans faire de fausse modestie, je pense qu'on est une vraie partie dans l'arrivée de Windjammer et aujourd'hui Windjammers 2 dans le paysage jeux vidéo.
The community only kept growing from there, to the point where it became as much a talking point as the game itself. The first time I was ever told about Windjammers, it was introduced to me as an amazing game with a weirdly big following in France. If you want to know how much some people like Windjammers, all the music in this video is by a French band called Power Disc, inspired by and named after the game. Seriously.
Lunch, gents run and catch the flying bodies. Lunch.
It's between video game sound and kind of Stevie Wonder or this kind of melody.
Gents run and catch the flying bodies. This is not a play.
All of this leaves me with one major question.
Why is it so popular in France?
It's a very good question. I think it's a bit random. France, video games are really big in France, and especially video games coming from Japan. France is one of the biggest markets for Nintendo in Europe, contrary to other consoles. So I think there was a fertile background for Windjammers, I would say.
It's cool in France because we love the California vision from the 90s. You know, the frisbee, the dog, the girl, the sunshine. That's cool. That's a cool vision.
Maybe we're super competitive, so that's why maybe like French people really thought it was cool to build a community around it. And for me, it's more a fighting game than a sports game. There's a lot of debate at the office about that. But for me, it's more like a fighting game, so there's a lot of mind games, stuff like that, and we love our fighting games in France. There's a huge community.
Windjammer, it's magic. I don't know why. Because, again, the frisbee.
But no matter how much some people liked the game, a true revival for Windjammers seemed highly unlikely. Developer Data East ran into financial troubles not long after the game's release, stopped making games in 1999, and by 2003 had filed for bankruptcy. Its properties and trademarks were systematically sold off, primarily to mobile game company Gmode, but not Windjammers. Aside from a Japanese-only Wii Virtual Console release, France's favourite power disc game seemingly disappeared altogether, with emulation the only meaningful way of playing the game on modern machines. That is, until French retro gaming experts .mu went looking.
Bringing back the first one was a big surprise because everybody thought the rights were lost. And what it kind of was actually, they were a bit lost. The game was released in '94 and wasn't released until the release on PlayStation 4, which was in 2017. And the right holders never thought about bringing it back, but we thought differently.
So I said, okay, let's find who has the license and let's try to do something with it. I don't remember exactly how we tracked it down, but usually what we do is we do some research on the internet, very basic research. And then with our contacts in Japan, we try to ask around. And basically we narrowed it down to Pong, which is the actual owner of the license, because of former employees from Data East joined this company at some point. And so we met Pong and we explained that there was a huge community in France, that we were ourselves playing a lot of Windjammers in the office. So they kind of felt that we were the right people to take care of that. They really saw that we had passion for it, not only because it's not like a super famous game, right? It's famous within the fighting game community, it's famous within the Neo Geo fans, but it's not that famous. So they kind of knew that we were not there to like have an easy cash grab, you know, like it was more about something that we were passionate about and that we wanted to spread a bit more because the game really deserved it.
Windjammers somehow was back. .mu created a game that looked and ran exactly as the original did in '94, primarily by digging into Data East's code to perform digital archaeology. The only major addition came in the form of online play, finally allowing people to play Windjammers across continents without emulation. It played perfectly into .mu's goal to spread the game to more people. Across the world, people began to talk about the game, helped massively, it must be noted, by some tireless campaigning by the team at Giant Bomb.
What a match, ladies and gentlemen, what a match!
Some even began suggesting it deserved a place among the great and the good of the fighting game community. In 2017, Windjammers unexpectedly broke into the upper echelons of the Player's Choice poll for games at EVO, the world's biggest fighting game tournament. The next year, it would do even better.
It got into the loop because we were relaunching it and because people were hearing more about it, but still. And so we're like, okay, we need to push for that. We did like a full campaign called Road to EVO, where we tried to kind of spam the EVO with like, hey, let's have Windjammers at EVO and everything. And then Anim at EVO, which is like a kind of side tournament for fans in like smaller games. They were super interested in it, and that's how we got in, basically.
Through sheer force of will, this 25-year young game has emerged to the pinnacle of fighting game tournaments.
The whole idea behind it was to first get people more familiar with the license, with the original games, with the exact same game but with online multiplayer, so that people can compete online and the community can grow around this competition. And the second step was Windjammers 2.
Part of .mu's pitch to the license holder was that after it recreated Windjammers, it would get to create a sequel too. Windjammers 2 is aiming to add extra complexity to the game without ever losing the core formula. Its biggest change is in its looks, which swap pixel graphics for a 90s cartoon style that aims to emulate the original game's box art. And who better to test whether those changes worked than Windjammers France, the community that helped keep the game alive for all these years.
The first time I heard about maybe bringing Windjammers at the office, I was like, yeah, I know the guys at Windjammers friends, they're that little community, they're really into the game, so it could be nice to have them like try the game, tell us if it's good.
So right from the port of Windjammers, the first one on console, we included people from Windjammers France. It's super practical because they're around, like they're not all in Paris, but they're in France, and it's easy to make them come. And they've been super nice and giving us a lot of feedback. So we're making sure that the emulation was pixel perfect on console. That was the first step, and then so little by little we kind of revealed to them that we were working on a sequel because we didn't tell them from the beginning.
I think of course there's pressure, like there's a lot of nostalgia into it, so of course they're waiting for something, they want something new but also something that is close to the original.
On est un peu patriote, donc oui, ça fait plaisir, et puis aussi pour nous, c'est une certaine assurance de pouvoir échanger avec les développeurs et de pouvoir aussi nous exprimer nos idées sur le jeu et comment est-ce qu'on voit le jeu et la profondeur qu'il dégage.
So we do a lot of play tests with them because for us they're the best players in the world and they're the ones that would be able to break Windjammers 2. The developers of Windjammers 2 here at .mu are really good at Windjammers, but they're not the same level. These guys have been playing for years. They kind of read the matrix, you know, like in the game. So that's what we really want to do, and that's super exciting to see them like kind of playing with this new toy, you know, like and like trying new strategies and like trying to exploit new stuff. So that gives us like a really good idea of like what's the right way of doing it.
It's not just behind closed doors testing. Using an early build of the game, .mu recently held the world's first Windjammers 2 tournament at Ultimate Fighting Arena 2019 in Paris, with the two-time EVO champion taking home this crown too. The developers probably couldn't have wished for a better confirmation that they're on the right track.
Bah, ça rajoute beaucoup d'options, du coup ça nous oblige à avancer, du coup on est plus agressif parce que si on reste derrière en fait on peut vite se faire avoir. Puis ouais, après les effets on ressent bien quand même le 1, c'est juste beaucoup d'options pour accélérer le jeu, c'est vraiment pas mal.
It's the community that as well make the game, you know. It's really if the people don't play the game, it won't go at EVO. So it's like yeah, we all have our part to play in bringing back Windjammers and make it really crazy.
So the pros are happy and the devs are happy, but surely the most important people are those French fans. How do they feel about getting a sequel? A French sequel, no less, after all this time.
Windjammers 2 is now a French game.
Yeah, and I'm so happy with that. It's amazing.
If you want more like this video from IGN, why not check out the lie that helped build Nintendo, or how Dragon Quest spawned an urban myth.